On September 1st, 1859, the entire sky turned blood red. From the Caribbean to Colombia, from Japan to Australia, people walked outside in the middle of the night and could read a newspaper by the light of the sky alone. Telegraph operators across the world screamed as their machines erupted in sparks and flames, some receiving violent electric shocks through their fingertips. Telegraph paper caught fire spontaneously. And here is the terrifying part. The sun had just fired a weapon at Earth that we had no defense against, a weapon it could fire again tomorrow. And by the end of this video, you will understand why scientists say the real question is not if this happens again, but when, and why the answer to that question should genuinely frighten you. Sun, weapon, Earth. What you are about to discover is the story of how a single event in 1859 exposed a vulnerability so massive that if it happened today, it would knock out the global power grid, disable every satellite in orbit, and send civilization back to the Dark Ages for months, maybe longer. This is the Carrington Event, and it almost ended everything. Most people think of the sun as this calm, glowing ball hanging in the sky. Warm, steady, reliable. But the sun is not calm. It is a raging nuclear furnace 400,000 times more massive than Earth, where temperatures at the core reach 27 million degrees. Every single second, the sun converts 600 million tons of hydrogen into helium through nuclear fusion, releasing energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. The sun is a mass of incandescent gas, a gigantic nuclear furnace. But here is what most people never consider. The sun has a temper. Its surface is laced with magnetic field lines that twist and tangle like rubber bands pulled too tight. When those lines snap, they release energy on a scale that makes every weapon humans have ever built look like a matchstick. These eruptions are called coronal mass ejections. Billions of tons of magnetized plasma launched into space at millions of miles per hour. Most of the time, these eruptions miss us entirely. Space is big, Earth is small. But on September 1st, 1859, one of these eruptions did not miss. It hit us dead center, and what happened next would change our understanding of the sun forever. Now, what I am about to tell you sounds like something from a movie, but every detail is documented fact. Richard Carrington was a 33-year-old British astronomer. On the morning of September 1st, he was in his private observatory in Redhill, England, doing what he did every clear day, projecting an image of the sun onto a white screen and sketching sunspots. At exactly 11:18 in the morning, he saw something no human had ever recorded before. Flash, two brilliant patches of white light erupted from a large sunspot cluster. They were so blindingly intense that Carrington thought his telescope had cracked and sunlight was leaking through. He blinked, looked again. The flashes were real. They moved across the sunspot, intensified, and then faded in about 5 minutes. Carrington had just witnessed the first recorded solar flare in human history. He did not know it yet, but 17 hours and 40 minutes later, the plasma cloud ejected by that flare would slam into Earth's magnetic field at over 4 million miles per hour. If that fact just blew your mind, hit like and subscribe, because the next facts are even crazier. Seriously, you are not ready for what comes next. Plasma cloud impact, because what happened when it arrived was absolute chaos. Here is where the story takes a dark turn. When that wall of solar plasma hit Earth's magnetosphere, it compressed our planet's magnetic field like a fist squeezing a balloon. The result was the most spectacular and terrifying aurora display in recorded history. The entire sky erupted in curtains of crimson and green light, not just near the poles, everywhere. People in Cuba, Jamaica, and El Salvador saw blood-red skies. In the Rocky Mountains, gold miners woke up at 1 in the morning and started making breakfast, convinced it was dawn. Ship captains in the tropics recorded auroras so bright they cast shadows on deck. Newspapers in Baltimore reported that you could read fine print by the light of the aurora alone. The light was greater than that of the moon at its full. People were mesmerized. Some were terrified. In many parts of the world, people dropped to their knees and prayed, believing it was the end of days. But the light show was just the beautiful distraction. The real damage was happening to the only piece of advanced technology the world had in 1859. And that is where this story gets genuinely frightening. Stop and think about this for a second. In 1859, the world had exactly one piece of interconnected electronic technology, the telegraph. Wires strung across continents and even under oceans, carrying electrical signals from city to city. It was the internet of its day. Telegraph Internet, 1859, and the Carrington Event destroyed it. When the geomagnetic storm hit, it induced massive electrical currents in every telegraph wire on the planet. Operators in multiple countries received severe electric shocks through their equipment. In Pittsburgh, a telegraph operator reported that sparks were literally jumping from his machine to his fingers. In Washington, the telegraph office caught fire. The paper in the machines spontaneously burst into flames. And here is the truly eerie part. Some operators disconnected their batteries entirely, and the telegraphs kept working. The geomagnetic storm was generating so much electrical current in the wires that the machines ran on solar power alone, sending and receiving messages powered by nothing but the storm itself. Machines running on the fury of the sun, with no batteries connected. The aurora was providing the electricity. Think about what that means. The storm was so powerful it could run technology by itself. Now imagine that same storm hitting today's infrastructure. But what comes next? That is where it gets truly insane. Now, to understand why we survived in 1859, but might not survive today, you need to understand the invisible shield that protects every living thing on this planet. Earth has a magnetosphere, a massive bubble of magnetic force generated by the spinning liquid iron core deep beneath your feet. Without this shield, every living thing on Earth would have been sterilized by solar radiation billions of years ago. This magnetosphere normally deflects the constant stream of charged particles flowing from the sun, the solar wind. It is the reason we have an atmosphere. It is the reason we are alive. But during the Carrington Event, the coronal mass ejection was so massive and so fast that it compressed the magnetosphere to roughly half its normal size. Charged particles that would normally be deflected were funneled directly into the atmosphere. Our shield buckled, but it did not break, and that is the key detail. In 1859, the magnetosphere held just enough, but scientists have discovered something troubling. Earth's magnetic field has weakened by about 9% over the last 200 years, which means if a Carrington-level event happened today, our shield would be even weaker than it was then. And what we are protecting is incomparably more vulnerable. Let me pause here because this next part changes the entire picture. In 1859, the world had telegraph wires. That was it. Today, our entire civilization runs on a web of electrical infrastructure so vast and so interconnected that a single disruption could cascade across continents in minutes. Power grid collapse. Think about what depends on electricity right now. Water treatment plants, hospital life support systems, traffic signals, banking systems, the internet, refrigeration for food and medicine, gas station pumps, every single cell tower and communication satellite. A Carrington-level geomagnetic storm would induce massive currents in power lines, overloading transformers across the grid. Blackout, and here is the part that keeps electrical engineers awake at night. Those giant transformers that form the backbone of the power grid, they are custom-built. Each one takes 12 to 18 months to manufacture. There are no spares sitting in a warehouse. If hundreds of transformers blow at once, there is no way to replace them quickly. A report by the National Academy of Sciences estimated that a severe geomagnetic storm could leave over 130 million Americans without power. Not for hours, not for days, for months, possibly over a year. And what a world without power actually looks like will haunt you. But here is what nobody tells you. The power grid is only half the problem. Look up. Right now, there are over 7,000 active satellites orbiting Earth. They control GPS navigation, weather forecasting, military communications, financial transactions, and the internet backbone that connects continents. During a Carrington-class storm, the flood of charged particles would bombard every satellite in orbit. Solar panels would degrade. Electronics would short-circuit. Orbits would destabilize as the upper atmosphere heats and expands, increasing drag on low-orbit satellites. A severe space weather event could render the GPS constellation unusable for days to weeks. Without GPS, commercial aviation grinds to a halt. Container ships cannot navigate. Emergency services lose their coordination systems. Your phone becomes a brick with no cell towers and no satellites to connect to. Every layer of modern technology is vulnerable to the same event. In 2012, we got a taste of this. A coronal mass ejection, almost identical in power to the Carrington Event, erupted from the Sun. Near-miss 2012, it crossed Earth's orbital path and missed us by exactly 9 days. 9 days was the difference between normal life and potential collapse. If you thought that was disturbing, you are not ready for this. On July 23, 2012, NASA Stereo, a spacecraft, recorded a coronal mass ejection that scientists later classified as comparable to, or possibly even stronger than, the Carrington Event. It tore through the exact spot where Earth had been just 9 days earlier. Daniel Baker, a space weather expert at the University of Colorado, calculated the probability. He concluded there is roughly a 12% chance of a Carrington-class event hitting Earth within any given decade, a 12% chance per decade of a civilization-threatening solar storm. Those are not small odds. That is roughly the same probability as flipping heads 4 times in a row. 12% decade. Lloyd's of London, the global insurance market, commissioned a study on what would happen if a Carrington event hit the United States today. Their estimate for economic damage was between $0.6 and $2.6 trillion. Trillions, and that was a conservative estimate that only covered the United States. A global event could trigger supply chain collapses, food shortages, and civil unrest on a scale modern civilization has never experienced. The question is not if, but when a large solar storm will hit Earth. But what makes this story truly haunting is not what could happen in the future. It is what we are doing, or rather not doing, right now to prepare. Now forget everything I just said about odds and statistics. Let me show you what the first 72 hours actually look like if a Carrington event hits tomorrow morning. Hour 1. The storm arrives. Within minutes, transformers across the northern hemisphere begin overloading. Circuit breakers trip in cascade. Major sections of the power grid go dark across North America, Europe, and Northern Asia simultaneously. 1. Power grid collapses in minutes. 2. Water stops flowing within hours. 3. Communication networks go silent. 4. Supply chains freeze completely. Hour 12. Without electricity, water treatment plants shut down. Taps go dry in major cities. Hospitals switch to backup generators, but diesel fuel is finite, and gas stations cannot pump without electricity. Hour 48. Grocery stores are empty. Refrigeration has failed. Medication that requires cold storage begins to spoil. ATMs and card payment systems are offline. Cash becomes the only currency, and most people have almost none. Hour 72. The true scope becomes clear. This is not a blackout. This is a new reality, and the repair timeline is not days or weeks. It is months. Some experts say a year or more. Comment which fact from this video you think is the most terrifying. I bet most of you will say this one. But I think the next one might change your mind. Remember at the beginning when I said the real question is not if, but when. Here is why scientists say that with such certainty. The Sun operates on an 11-year solar cycle, swinging between periods of low and high activity. During solar maximum, sunspot numbers peak, and the probability of powerful flares and coronal mass ejections increases dramatically. We are currently approaching solar maximum. Right now, solar cycle 25 has been significantly more active than predicted. Multiple X-class flares, the most powerful category, have already been recorded. In May 2024, the strongest geomagnetic storm in over 20 years hit Earth, producing auroras visible as far south as Florida and Mexico. Cycle 25 active. It was beautiful. It was also a warning shot. The scientific community has been pushing for better early warning systems. NASA Parker Solar Probe, launched in 2018, is literally flying through the Sun's outer atmosphere to study these eruptions up close. The European Space Agency's Vigil mission, planned for launch soon, will provide the first real-time side view of solar eruptions heading toward Earth. We currently have about 15 to 60 minutes of warning before a coronal mass ejection arrives. 15 to 60 minutes. That is the window we have to protect the entire grid. Some utilities have developed emergency protocols to disconnect transformers before the surge arrives. But implementation is inconsistent, underfunded, and largely voluntary. We are playing a game of cosmic roulette with the infrastructure of civilization itself. The Carrington Event of 1859 set telegraph offices on fire when the telegraph was the height of technology. Today, our entire world runs on electricity. Every hospital, every water plant, every phone in every pocket. The sun does not care about our technology. It does not care about our economy or our politics. It simply does what it has done for 4.5 billion years. It burns, and sometimes it reaches out. The Carrington Event was not ancient history. It was yesterday on a cosmic timescale. And the sun that nearly ended civilization in 1859 is the same sun shining through your window right now. The only difference is that now we have infinitely more to lose. In 1859, the world had telegraph wires. Today, we have 7,000 satellites, intercontinental power grids, and 8 billion people dependent on technology for survival. The 12% probability per decade is not a distant theoretical risk. It is a ticking clock. And every year that passes without preparation is another year we gamble with everything we have built. Tick-tock clock. If you made it this far, comment Carrington Event to prove you are among the few who actually understand what is at stake. The truth is stranger than anything you could make up. And sometimes, the most terrifying truths are the ones hiding in plain daylight.